Hey, what's going on, Double Tap family? It's Joshua here with Double Tap Fatigues and Slacks. I'm here with the normal crew. Shane Miller, say what's up.
What's up?
Tyler Miller, say what's up.
What up?
Hey, so today, guys, we want to get into a very, I guess, challenging topic. We're going to talk about relationships and how the military affects relationships in service, transitioning from service, and then after we're out of service, what we've gone through and how it's affected our personal relationships and some of the experiences we've gone through. So we'll talk about that today, and we'll get everybody's experiences. So we'll start off with our normal shot over, shot out. Shot over, Tyler.
Shot out.
Give us a little bit of experience about how your relationship with your wife has progressed throughout the years of service and after service.
I don't know what I could liken it to. A wildfire, maybe. And that's good and bad. But there's ups and downs. It's a roller coaster. I mean, whatever euphemism you want to give it. But yeah, man. I mean, I got married super young, so there was a lot of learning involved, and then throwing the army with that, and a new wife. So
you were still breastfeeding when you got married.
Yeah, basically, yeah. I was 21. I had just turned 21 a week earlier. Yeah, and she was 19. So yeah, babies. But yeah, it was a lot of ups and downs. It was fun, and then it wasn't, and we did that roller coaster ride for years. And I mean, we're gonna be, let's see, 4 days. It will have been married for 13 years on the 8th. And so I can honestly say it took us every bit of the last the first 7 to 10 years of our marriage to get to a place where it's like everything isn't a fight, or it's just not that up and down super hardcore. We know where each other stands. And we've gone through, I mean, we'll get into it, we've gone through a lot to get there, but we finally made it. The military definitely puts a giant roadblock in the way, but then again, I mean, I think it also gave us some things to hang on to that other people don't in civilian world. So all in all, it's it's been a hell of a ride, but it's definitely been a good one for sure.
Fuck yeah. So let's go to you, Shane. Shot over,
shot out.
So can you explain to us, I want to lighten the mood a little bit, can you explain to us and explain to our listeners what the infamous dependopotamus is?
I mean, I've never heard of that, but I'm pretty sure I know what you're talking about.
Oh no, you've never heard the term.
I've never heard that.
I've never heard of the term the dependopotamus?
No, I can assume a few different things. Why don't you explain to me what it is?
No, you're gonna tell us what you think a dependopotamus is first, and we'll let you know if you're right.
All right, one of two things. All right, so a lot of people get married to substandard, settle for certain women so they can live off base.
Watch what you say now.
That would be, hey, I said substandard. I didn't say fat. Okay.
Oh, but he meant fat.
I meant fat. Yeah. They get married to people who are not anybody they're in love with, so on and so forth, so they can move off base. A lot of times it's somebody they had sex with back home one time when they were drunk, who they have no interest in, but they want to get that off base money. So that would be my guess.
So that's pretty close. I mean, that's probably actually a portion of what a dependopotamus is.
Yeah.
But the other part of it is just women that are dependents and they fucking get fat as fuck while they are depending upon.
Yeah, and there's this certain, it's a certain type of person also, like the phrase Karen, those are dependopotamuses.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I
These
know
are the
Everything
one.
that her husband did, she did. Like she thinks she's a sergeant
Hey,
somehow,
hey, I know
kind
some.
of deal.
I know the opposite direction. I know a few dependopotamuses that are men.
I can
Quite a
probably see
few.
that too. But so these
Yeah.
are also women that you would see maybe in the shopette or the PX or BX in your for you, Shane, and the Air Force that come to these areas with like a PT jacket on, or they may have a purse with ACU print.
Bro.
This is your typical dependopotamus in the wild.
In the
So
wild.
officers' wives are notorious for this shit, dude. Uh,
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
I used to work the gate. When I first got to Offutt Air Force Base, I worked the gate for like 3 months while I was waiting for training assignment. And they would pull up and they'd be like, "Aren't you going to salute me?" And I'd be like, "You're a dependent." And they'd be like, "Yeah, but my husband's a colonel." And I'd be like, "But you're not a colonel." And they'd be like, "Respect the rank." And I'm like, "I do. When he gets in the car with you, I'll salute him."
Is he in
I,
the
had,
back seat? Do I not see him?
I
I'm
stood next to a
confused.
girl doing that over some shoes. They were like, "We don't have that size, ma'am." And she was like, "Do you know who my husband is? He's the wing commander." I'm like, that doesn't make them get shoes out of their ass. Like, they don't have the size.
Yeah, the
Jeez.
dependopotamus is a special person.
Yeah.
Like Tyler said, they assume the rank of their husband. Shane alluded to it a little bit too. And it's pretty disgusting in most instances, not just physically, but their demeanor and their behavior and attitudes in general. But just to bring a little lightness to the show, we wanted to definitely talk about the dependopotamus and in their in their natural habitat.
Yeah, that's a relationship topic. We can do that.
So
Right.
let's transition a little bit into something a little more serious. So Shane, let's talk a little bit about what some of the struggles you faced through, we'll say, the early part of your career. Let's talk about training before we get into actual military life.
Sure. Yeah, so I think for just about everybody, I mean, coming in married is a little bit easier than getting married while you're in because you have some kind of a foundation. So my first wife, I joined, and we had already been married for, I don't know, 6 months or a year or something like that. I got married when I was 18, and we've been together since high school. So I think that that's a good way to do it. It's a good solid foundation. So it wasn't as hard for us in the beginning as a lot of my friends that got married during, you know, Christmas leave during basic training and crap like that. It messes y'all up because you don't have that foundation. But at the same time, you join and you do basic training and you don't get to see anybody. Then you get to see them for, in my case, and I don't know how the Army works, but in my case, I got to see my wife and my family at my graduation, and then I had to ship out. So I went from actually from San Antonio, Texas to San Antonio, Texas. I went across the street. So did a couple did a couple weeks there. It was pretty exotic. Yeah, a couple weeks there. Then I shipped up to Monterey, and my wife got to join me. So you get back into the groove, and you're married. And I mean, they make you chill like 3 weeks before they let your spouse come out. Um, but none of it's really that bad. They paid for the move. All my stuff got shipped up there in my truck, everything like that. So when I was up there, though, we had a year together every day, and it was like a normal job. It was like going to school. Um, and then all of a sudden, I got to go to survival school and cryptology school and a bunch of other shit. So again, I'm gone for 6 months, like a TDY or something, basically, and she has to go home. So she went back to her parents' house again. So it's kind of it creates a weird honeymoon phase. The whole relationship in the military, you're getting short stints with your spouse that are really great, but you don't really shit doesn't really hit the fan until you are together for a long stint.
So would you say, Shane, that because of that honeymoon phase, that you really never even got to know what it was like to be married through training?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, because it's all excitement. So she comes up and visits for a day or two and then she leaves. And then she comes up to live and it's like for me, we lived on the beach. I mean, we lived in Fort Ord, which is literally from my rooftop I could see the beach. So, you know, perpetual honeymoon for fucking a year. And and then you get to your first duty station and you start TDYing and deploying and stuff like that. For you guys, it was, Korea or whatever. But even that is, um, until you are fucked up and then come back, it's not real.
So it sounds kind of like you leave, you come together, and it's like a bone fest for a short time.
Yeah,
And then you separate again, and then you come back, and it's another bone fest.
pretty much. Yeah. I mean, so my first wife used it as like we would both gain weight when we were together, and then we'd use the 3 months apart to lose a little bit of weight, come back looking sexy, gain the weight again, separate. We just did that on cycle for years, and you don't really get to spend a lot of time together because you guys know with PT and shit, an 8 or a 10 hour day is a 12 or a 14-hour day. So by the time you've commuted and you've done PT and you've done any shit errands you got to do on base, um, and you get an hour lunch, so there's no point. At least I got an hour lunch. There's no point in going home during it. So, the actual amount of time you get to spend with your spouse during that whole time, anyways, is very small. But at least you're together. Then they separate you again. So.
I want to come and talk to Tyler a little bit because Tyler had a very unique training situation. He was in training for 17 years and
17 and a half, but yeah.
yeah, and he liked to kiss men while he was there and he got monos. I'm just joking. So Tyler, tell us a little bit about your training experience and what it was like to be married during that time frame.
Oh shit. So, I just really liked how much it sucked. I just wanted to stay. Basic felt like home. No, it didn't. Yeah, I went January of 2008 and made it through like the first 3 weeks, and we were literally like marching in snow up to our knees. Josh, I think you were there at the fucking same time in a different company. So
yeah, I think
you
we
can
were literally
attest
there at the same time.
to the winter in Fort Knox in 08. It fucking sucked.
Yes. Yeah.
So you go get all your fucking vaccinations, and the first couple of weeks, it's just the Army's so smart, and they bring all these people together from different places. So instead of giving you like a couple of weeks to
Acclimate.
get used to everybody else's germs and stuff, get that microbiome like nice and strong, they're like, you know what? We're going to put you all together and we're going to give you shots all at the same time. But honestly, their thought process is, and it's true, you're going to get fucking sick. So they just want to get it over with in the beginning. Like, introduce New York to California, Washington to Florida. And by the way, here's 47 fucking shots to put in your shoulder and your ass. Go get sick and then move on. Fucking, so yeah. I mean, we had guys with like blown blood vessels in their like retinas or corneas or whatever. I don't know. But it literally looked like they had just gotten done with a boxing match and like had a detached retina because it was full of blood just literally from coughing so hard. So I was the first one to get mono. Then one of the dudes had a freaking seizure, some kind of reaction to one of the vaccines. And then apparently once I got like quarantined and downstairs, like I wasn't part of the, like at that point I knew I was going to get recycled. I found out that like a bunch of other people had started getting it. So I guess I was the first one to kiss a dude, But
Battle buddy.
yeah, man, we were close.
Nut to butt. Nut to butt.
That's right. No, but so I ended up getting hospitalized. Yeah, end of week 3, I think. My platoon went out to FTX, so they sent me to another platoon because I couldn't go. And I had told the drill sergeant, like, I'm not refusing to train, but physically I can't. And he's like, okay, well, you're like getting recycled. I'm like, at this point, I had gone 10 days.
You're like, I can't breathe, bro.
Yeah, I would go to the chow hall and they would like be pissed at me, like, why aren't you eating? You need to eat, private. And I'm like, I sound like I was underwater. You couldn't even see my jawline. My neck was swollen out to here.
The fucking teacher from Peanuts.
I mean, any kind of even drinking water was just
excruciating.
Not happening. Yeah. So I trained for 10 days. I went from I think it was 204, 205 down to 164 in 10 days. I lost 40 pounds because I wasn't eating, but I was still trying to push to train. In the middle of winter, like literally marching in snow up to my knees. I was like, cool. So I thought basic would be a little bit easier than this. Like,
I'm dying.
I'm dying. So yeah. Long story short, end up getting fucking hospitalized for like a week. I'm on a Dilaudid drip.
Oh, the good stuff.
The good stuff, dude. Yeah, I could tell you about that high. I've never done heroin, but I'm pretty sure that's pretty close to what it feels like. And I found out it's actually molecularly pretty close. They're cousins. So yeah, lose 40 fucking pounds, man, and get recycled. They end up sending me home for like 2 weeks. So I just lay in bed for 2 weeks. And then I come back. Say I started in January, come back, I don't know, like March time frame, something like that.
So quick
And
question for that 2 weeks
yeah,
that you came home, were you able to see Monica at all during that time?
Yeah, didn't you propose during that time?
oh yeah, there's a lovely, lovely picture.
Yeah,
Uh,
The Auschwitz photo?
yeah, yeah. It's what it looks like. So this was uh Valentine's Day of 2008. Yeah, because I left. I started January 8th. So I must have come home probably like sometime in the first week of February, and then I was home on convalescent leave for 2 weeks. That's when I proposed, and then went back. And the army, in all of its wisdom, they were like, "Well, before we can release you to another unit, we need to test you, make sure that you don't have mono." So they test me again, and they're like, "Oh my god, you have mono again," and I'm sitting there like, "Bro, like it's still in my system."
Yeah.
What do you mean? They're like, no, no, yeah, you're just gonna have to wait it out. So they quarantined me again for like another 2 or 3 weeks, like literally in a room by myself, jail style. Had some other private bring me my 3 squares a day to the door, knock on the door, and walk away. Open
So
the
you're on
door,
solitary
grab my shit,
confinement.
straight up. Yeah, like I literally did push-ups in the room and looked out the window at dudes like running around and doing calisthenics and stuff, like
Yeah, you did.
talking to the birds and the trees and shit. It was
Did they have
great.
you on LOA during that time frame?
No, no, they didn't actually. I don't think I really showed any signs of it. I mean, it was definitely a shitty time, but I didn't, show or say anything.
Cancel it. So Tyler, you said you weren't on LOA. Just so everybody knows, LOA is what happens if you say that you're suicidal or you're going to hurt yourself. They put someone. It's called line of advancement. Line of what? Line
Well,
of
it's LOS.
LOS. Line of
sight.
sight. Line of sight.
Yeah.
LOS. You're right. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
someone has to literally be watching you at all times to make sure that you don't off yourself. So,
You know what you're thinking of is limit of advance when
yes,
you're assaulting an
limit.
objective.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking about. So, you said that you weren't up put on that. You were just kind of fucking sucking it up, living the suck in the fucking solitary confinement. And
Yeah, man. I was trying to do my own prison tats, cutting some boots and mixing it with pee and trying to make my own ink to stab myself with.
did you have some
So
toilet
yeah,
juice?
We had a little bit of
I
toilet
made it.
wine.
Yeah, get some hooch going, but I made it through it. So yeah, I finally in there for like 2-3 weeks or whatever, and they're like, okay, you can go back to another unit. You're cleared, is the word I'm looking for. So they're like, the problem is that we don't have another like week 2 or week 3. Like they were putting not a day zero restart. I didn't have to start all over again. They were putting me back at like week 3 or whatever where I had ended. So like the company that we're putting you at is still like in week 1. So you are going to have to go to the FTU, which is the fitness training unit, aka fat camp kids, and go fucking run with them all day every day until your unit gets back up to week 3, and then we'll cycle you in with them. I was like, cool, all right. So went over to fat camp and sat there and ran with these dudes for like 2.5 weeks. Did like road guard duty for any events happening in garrison. Finally make it to the next unit. I had been there so long that I had two of my original three platoon drill sergeants in the new company because they had already gone through all of my original. So this is 7-8 weeks later, because it was week 3 and it was a 10-week cycle. So they see me and they're like, Miller, what the fuck are you doing here, bro? Like, pulled me to the side, like, talked to me one-on-one, and I told them the whole story, and they're like, dude, that's just fucking stupid. I was like, yeah, tell me about it. So they even told me one time we're in formation, and we had a couple fucking bedwetter little bitches that are crying about how hard basic is, because basic, like, it's not fucking hard. Like, it sucks. You get your liberties taken and shit. It's just getting used to a new norm. But some people, they just don't fucking, they just can't make it click, I guess. So yeah, they asked me in the middle of formation, company formation, like, hey, Miller, yeah, drill sergeant, hey, what's the quickest way to get the fuck out of here? And I was like, graduate, drill sergeant. That's what I've been trying to do. So yeah, that was the last transition. I finally graduated with those cats. God, I think it was June, mid-June, I want to say. No, beginning of June. So I was in basic minus those 2 weeks of convalescent leave. Yeah, January to June. So what's that? Fucking 6 months.
6 months.
Call it 5.5 months of basic training.
So talk to us a little bit about how that affected your relationship and your overall marriage.
Dude,
Well,
we go ahead.
you weren't married at the time, correct? You were just
No, so yeah, we got engaged, like I said, February when I went home on con leave. And so we're sitting there writing letters. And that's it for 5 months. Oh no, I take that back. We did get phone calls once in a while. I would volunteer to go clean the drill sergeant's bays on the first floor at nighttime, because I had a phone card, and my buddy had found an old rotary phone in a desk. So he would go mop the hallways, and I would be underneath the desk in the room with the lights off talking, and then I would cycle out, watch for him sweep the floors while he was in there talking to his family back home. So we got a little bit of that. But yeah, it sucked. I ended up having let's see, it was AIT. What was that, like a 8-week phase, something like that. But yeah, we got married after AIT, so we got married in August. And AIT, like, I mean, it's not, I mean, you get your phone unless you're
a
training.
fuck up. Yeah,
or if you fuck up, yeah, exactly. But so after that, it was easy. Basic definitely sucked though, because I just proposed to this girl Valentine's Day, and then it's pretty much, except for maybe 1 or 2 phone calls, or 1 phone call a week, and then letters. That was it. So it sucked, but we got through it, and then yeah, AIT was pretty chill. So the funny thing though was, we were supposed to get married based on the AIT dates. Was we were going to get married like August 23rd, and then they ended up finding another unit that was starting sooner than they thought. So they told us all when we had gotten there, like, oh no, we're wrong, you guys are actually starting right now. They thought they were going to have to hold us over for a couple weeks. So my wife had to, like, after she hand wrote over like 125 invitations to a wedding, call 125 attendees and be like, hey, it's actually August 8th, not August 23rd. So yeah, she started getting put through the army ringer like immediately, and learning that you're just gonna have to learn to adapt quickly, and she did. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst, and that's kind of what she's had to had to learn.
So I'll get into a little bit of my story. When I first joined the Army, I was married to a fucking horrible person, a horrible fat person. I hated.
Hey, don't fat shame.
Well, she was just her heart was
Her
fat.
heart was fat.
Really fat heart.
Yeah. I fucking hated this person. I entered into a relationship with a woman that was 9 years older than me, and we had been in a relationship for several years. She kind of, I won't say she held me hostage in a relationship, but I was very immature to be in a relationship with a woman that much older than me, and I did not understand how to get out of it. Plus, at the time before the Army, I mean, I've always been a very self-confident person, but I didn't have, I guess, the confidence or the ability to kind of like exit the relationship. Plus, right before I ended up joining the Army, probably a little over a year, she had told me she was pregnant with my oldest son. So in the South, it's like the right thing to do. You get fucking married when you get somebody pregnant, and you take care of the woman that you got pregnant. I mean, it's maybe not necessarily like that all over now, but I was kind of raised that way, that you don't run away from something like that, that you own it. And even if you don't necessarily care to be with the person, that you fucking man up and you take that responsibility.
Yep.
So that's where I was when I joined the Army. And I had a very unique situation. I was also, from being in a fucking terrible relationship for so long, I was extremely overweight. When I joined the Army, or I tried to join the Army, I was 275 pounds at fucking 22 years old. And basically the recruiter was like, yeah, dude, you're too fucking fat. You're going to have to lose some weight and then come back and try again. So I did that 3 times. And finally, the third time, I was able to pass the, there's a test that they give you at MEPS where basically you have to do a certain amount of push-ups. And then you have to step up on this 1 foot step to a cadence, which is like, and you have to keep stepping up on that cadence. And if you stop, you're automatically done. And then afterwards, they check your heart rate. And if your heart rate is above a certain level, they disqualify you. So luckily, I was able to pass that, and I got in. So January the 31st, 2008, I shipped off to Fort Knox, Kentucky. So as it would turn out, Tyler and I were at the same place at the same fucking time. I had left my wife and my young, I think my son at the time was maybe 8 months old. I had left him behind in North Carolina. I was in Fort Knox the very first fucking night that we were in Fort Knox. We had just went through the whole ringer where they shave our heads, they take all of our shit, they give us our brown fucking chonies and all of our shit. And we're in these fucking holdover bays waiting to go to our drill sergeants. And we had a
46 adjutant.
Yep, 46 adjutant. There you go. I would never remember that. But we had a fucking tornado the night that we were in fucking the very first day of basic training. So they like wake us up at like 3:00 in the morning, fucking rush us all downstairs and like get down in the fucking, the tornado fucking cover up position against the wall. So I started my Army career like, what in the fuck did I just do? I'm in this crazy situation. I'm in Fort Knox, Kentucky. At the time, it wasn't super cold. And I think that's what caused the tornado, like the change, obviously the warm weather and the cold weather mixing together, and the pressure changes. But I went through a whirlwind, literally and figuratively. And I finally got to the drill sergeants. We went through the shark attack. I was still fighting the weight because I was still not where I needed to be. I was still really unhealthy, really out of shape, and going through that process and not being able to call home. And that's by design. Literally, when you get there, they give you one phone call to call one person and tell them that you made it safe, and that's it. And while you're on the phone, they're like yelling at you in the background.
Yeah. And you got to choose between calling your mom at 18 years old or
or your wife. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So they're like screaming at you in the background, and nobody for the most part has ever gone through anything like this. So you're just like, what the fuck? I'm here. I'm safe. I'm good. I'm not dead. I'll call you when I can. Click.
Yeah.
And that's the extent of it. But I did the same thing. I communicated with my spouse at the time. Again, I didn't care too much about communicating with her. It's more so about checking to see how my son was doing, how my mom and everyone back home was. With her, I didn't like care too much about speaking with her, but uh, the motivation to get me through training didn't come from my wife. It came from my son, and it was the best thing I did overall, not just for my health, but for my mental state of mind. Because after getting through that, I realized that I was so much stronger mentally and emotionally, not just because I got fit, but just because I got mentally tough. I was able to go through at the time one of the hardest things I'd ever been through. And like Tyler says, it's not like super hard, but just the conditions that they put you under. They wake you up at 4 o'clock in the morning. They don't let you go to sleep till 11 o'clock at night. They keep you awake to do fire guard and all that shit. And they keep you secluded so that you can't talk to your family, so that you create those bonds with the people that you're going through training with. And, it didn't really bother me not being able to communicate because I just didn't care.
Yeah.
Um, so, long story short, whenever I finished training and I went home, I asked for a divorce. And that was, basically like, I'm strong enough now to fucking tell you what I've been trying to say for years. I was way too young to get in a relationship with you. And I never wanted to be with you. I never loved you. And now I have the strength to fucking say that to you. So, my training experience was quite a bit different than you two, because you were with women that you actually loved and adored and wanted to be with. And mine was just kind of like, I fucking hate this woman and how can I get away from her? And the Army kind of gave that to me so that when I left training, I could be like, you know what? I've done this for long enough and it's time for me to fucking be my own man. So that's kind of what happened with me throughout training. The story changes drastically when we get into Korea, and I would like to talk about that for a little bit. But let's talk about with you, Shane. So when you get to your first duty station, and you have a regular grind where you're doing something every day, what effects, if any, did that have in your relationship or your marriage?
The grind wasn't the problem for us. It was I was on a joint base, right? So the Defense Language Institute is a joint base. And that just means there's a lot of different people. And you guys know very well the difference between Air Force people, Navy people, Marines, all that kind of stuff. The level of partying, the level of, demand for respect, stuff like that. And there's a lot of prior service folks there. So prior service doesn't mean that they're out. It means that they're retraining, so they're not having to stay in the barracks and all that kind of stuff. And you have to give them the respect they deserve. Some of them are high ranking. So for my marriage portion of it, I mean, it wasn't super strenuous being there, other than the fact that I was stressed about learning a language and all that kind of stuff. But they expected her to have some kind of a decorum on base, to act a certain way. She'd come in the base gate, they'd search her car. She'd call me crying. They won't let me in. They're searching the car. Just the kind of crap that you go through to get on and off base and to deal with people on base it's trying for somebody who didn't sign up for that. Like, she signed up to be my wife, not to deal with the bullshit that I was signing up for. So that was the most trying thing. And then friends and stuff. I mean, you make friends and your spouse doesn't like them, but you're stuck with them. They're in your class. I had to have people come over to my house, that kind of shit.
So would you say that overall the effect for the relationship was harder for the spouse than it was for you? That's what you're overall saying?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, granted, like I said, you guys had it hard. I was in frickin' Monterey. It got harder for me before and after that year in Monterey. When I was in real training, and they treated me like a trainee. In Monterey, you're treated like a student in a college. So it was pretty nice for me, Get up at, I'd say I probably showed up to work around 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. It wasn't that early. I got off at 3 or 4 in the afternoon. I lived 20 minutes from the
Banker's
base.
hours.
Yeah, it was not bad. Spend your day on the beach, going to Carmel. I mean, that portion was nice. It was a,
Tough.
it was a, it was a kick in the slats when I went back to training in Texas after that, and then up to Washington. But yeah, I mean, yeah, like you said, I would say it was probably harder for my wife um, adjusting to all that crap, you know. And we were poor. You guys know this too. So when you're married and training, you're bringing home. I was bringing home $300 every 2 weeks, basically.
Hmm.
And I think I got paid at that point all at once. So I'm bringing home like $600 on the first or something like that. We couldn't afford new cars. We couldn't afford anything. She got a job and bought me my first truck, my first full size truck. I had a crappy little Ford Ranger when I joined. But yeah, actual take home pay, we got nothing. The house was free, but we were poor. So that was the hardest part of all of it, was making ends meet.
So going through that, do you think that strengthened the bond between you two, or do you think that it started to cause a bit of a divide?
You know, for me, it definitely strengthened the bond for us. She got a job as a manager of a video store right away, and was making more money than me. So you know, there was a good amount of respect towards her, and vice versa, and we had a good relationship. But there was a lot of spouses out there that just wanted to drink or party or take trips home, stuff like that, stuff that you couldn't afford on $600 a month, and I saw a lot of people's marriages end in that year. You know, you basically been in for 3 months at that point, and then you do a year of training, and I'd say probably 50% of the people I knew that were married were divorced by the end of that.
How do you feel like was it easy for your wife to create bonds and relationships with other wives or other spouses or girlfriends or whatever?
No, I don't think that was the case either. So, and I think that's another layer of complexity in the military, is that I had obviously classes above me and below me, right? They start classes like every 3 weeks or something like that. Um, and you kind of get to pick your friends. I mean, obviously you're stuck with some people in your class, but you don't really have to hang out with them if you're married and you're living off base. So I had like two or three good friends that I was close with that were coming over all the time, which my wife didn't particularly care for. Um, and then quite a few people who were also married and their wives were coming around, and my wife didn't care for their wives. So her making bonds, she ended up becoming friends with people at work a lot easier than the military spouses. Military spouses are kind of notoriously, like we talked about earlier, they're not the cream of the crop a lot of the time, so
So you started to create those military bonds obviously way before your wife did, and so you started to acclimate a lot easier.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a forced experiences. The military is like an arranged marriage, right? You don't want to be around any of these stinky motherfuckers, but after 6 months of it, you have to appreciate their presence, and you have to respect them, and for the most part, you get that camaraderie, especially when you're doing harder stuff like basic training or survival school. That kind of stuff definitely creates bonds between people you would have never talked to outside of the service. Um, as a civilian spouse, you still don't have to talk to those people if you don't want to. So they retain a lot of their autonomy, and they don't feel like they need to be friends with your crappy military friends.
Okay. So Tyler, let's talk a little bit about your situation. And I know your situation because you and I had the exact same situation. After basic and AIT, we both got shipped off to Korea. The one difference being I went over as a single male because, as I just stated, I was able to tell my ex that I wanted her to kick rocks. But on the flip side, you came over with your wife to Korea, which at the time was still a very unique situation. So talk to us a little bit about that and how that was for you guys, and then the command sponsorship process.
Well, funny story. Korea wasn't command sponsored. So uh that shit literally, I want to say within no, maybe 3 months of me coming back from Korea became command sponsored. But yeah, bro, when I went, Germany, I think was like the only OCONUS command sponsored station. So
So
But yeah,
what the fuck was that like though, with you being in a brand new fucking marriage, going to a completely, Southeast Asian fucking
right.
foreign land? Like,
It was completely fucking retarded. Everything what they told me, like, look, it's a month or a year long deployment, and your wife,
hardship
if
tour,
you want her to
hardship tour,
come,
hardship tour.
yeah, yeah, exactly, hardship tour. There you go. Yeah. They're like, if you want her to be there, pull out your wallet. So it's like, okay, cool, cool. That's how it's gonna roll. So I
And a
think I
lot of
was
people don't
there.
do that. A lot of people don't pay that money.
No, no. But when you go back um, from Korea, that you're probably gonna get deployed within another year. So it's like, all right, I'm definitely gonna have her here. I'm not gonna have her gone for a year or be gone for a year and then go home for a year and then be gone for another year. So it's like, all right, we'll figure it out ourselves, I guess. So we or I got there. I think I was there about 4 to 6 weeks before she even came over. It was just my off time, man. I'd run out to the city, and I found some real estate agent lady who was like helping me look for apartments and stuff. And she spoke like about that much English, so it was really fun trying to figure out. Um, but yeah, man, it was a process, and it was kind of weird because when you're in the army, usually takes care of a lot of that shit for you. So when they were like, "Oh, you got to do it yourself," I'm like, "Okay," kind of threw me for a loop. Didn't know what the hell I was doing. Um, Shit, I think that was actually, yeah, that was my first time out of the country. Like, never been outside the U.S. So it was there was a learning curve for sure. So yeah, I get there, I found a place. She's back home trying to get her passport. Um, Finally get her over, and we set up shop in the middle of, oh god, Dongducheon. Was like the district. Jihang Jugong was the city. Um, and yeah, it was. I mean, I don't know about what was it, 8 to 10 minutes from post.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was living on the 18th floor of some high-rise apartment complex in the middle of South Korea, and it it was a trip, man. I mean, it was cool. We were obviously extremely young, and it was a new place on the other side of the world, and so it was a cool experience. But it was also, it took a lot to figure out the logistics of it. It can be a nightmare at times, but we got through it, and she was there. Um, Geez, I think she got there October of 2008, and then yeah, we came back in August of 09. So we got to go travel on the weekends. It was hard for her because she was locked up in the apartment during the week. I'd be gone from, I think I had to leave the house around 4:30 to make it to 4:30, 4:45 to make it to Formation Post, because the city taxis aren't allowed to go on post. There's only certain taxis that are allowed that have the clearance, the tags, whatever, to go on post. So I'd have to go walk down to the train station or find a taxi, and then I'd have to run from the gate where they drop me off at the front gate, and then run to my unit for PT. So um, eh, yeah, I mean, at times I was a little bit envious of just barracks life, just because it was so much easier. I mean, shit, I'd come to yours in Olson's room after PT every morning. I'd just bring my bag of whatever the fuck I had,
Just hang
ACUs,
out. Yeah.
smokes, water, whatever, and I would go and fucking get ready for the day with you guys after PT. But like I said, it was fun. She met a couple of wives from the unit, and was able to hang out with them. And you just kind of, like I said, you just kind of adapt and roll with it.
So I wanted to ask you two questions as it
Yeah.
pertains to the other spouses. Like, whenever you were going through the process, to get her there, because there were a couple other families that had done the same thing you did. I know Staley had his wife there.
Yep.
Baby Wright had his wife there. Did you have any help from some of those guys to kind of help guide you through the steps that you needed to go through?
So it was more so like once I had the actually I think one of the guys gave me the number for the real estate lady to help me find a spot. But we actually ended up leaning on people like once Monica got there, we got set up in the apartment, and Baby Wright's wife at the time, Tiffany, she was like, you know, the mama bear. She had been there. I mean, I think they had already been there when I got there for like probably 7 or 8 months at least. Like they were only there
Yeah.
maybe 3 months or so. That Monica got to be with them before they left. But her and Tiffany got super close, and Tiffany was like, "All right, girl, like let me give you the the lowdown on where you get this and where you go to do that, and where to spend your time and things you need to see while you're here, and how to get furniture for your apartment, and just trying to get her the street smarts and stuff like that. And sometimes I'd be able to catch a taxi with some of the guys. I don't think Jeff lived too far from us. So yeah, I mean, you definitely get close to the people that are more in your circumstance. So
Bullshit.
he said bullshit.
Hey, I got
Because we were definitely closer, you guys and me, and I was single for the most part
Well, that's because you're always at
at
my
the time.
fucking house, bro.
yeah,
Yeah.
leech.
So,
Yeah.
would you say that Monica immediately started to gain like friendships with some of the other spouses?
Yeah, definitely with Tiff. She had a couple other friends, but nobody that she really like connected with on the level that she did with Tiff. She would either go out by herself or she was doing something with Tiff. Um, they would she was never one of those ones that was like the MWR chicks, like that
Yeah.
was never she wasn't about it. Like she wanted to figure things out for herself, or find a good friend and pick their brains. So um
Do you think
yeah, that's how we did it.
the main struggle? Do you think the struggle would have been as bad? And I think I already know the answer to this question, but do you think the struggle would have been as bad for you guys had you just ended up in a stateside unit, where um, where you would have been going through the same training through the same shit, but you wouldn't have been in Korea? Would that have been an equal struggle for Monica, or do you think the fact that we were in Korea definitely amplified it by a lot?
Oh, definitely exponentially amplified it, because for her, like she was excited obviously to be with me. We had only had a couple weeks um at home. Like I said, we got married August 8th, and then I went to Korea I think August 21st. So it was like honeymoon, and then all right, hopefully I'll see you in a couple months kind of deal. So she's super happy to come, super excited. But
They always are.
after, yeah, but I mean, after those first 6 weeks or so, you dickhead, I just got that. Yeah, they are. But anyways, yeah, she kind of got a little depressed, sitting in the house, and that's why I kind of pushed on her to go and like make friends. And that's when the whole Tiff thing came about. I was talking to Baby Wright, and I was like, hey bro, like, let's get the wives together. And so she started coming out of her shell. But it was still super hard for her, because I mean, bro, I was spending 200-300, at least 400 maybe a month on phone cards just for her, because she was calling home
Yeah.
every day for hours, and it was just like, oh my god. So yeah, it was definitely harder, but it's also an experience that I think she will remember a lot more vividly for a lot longer than had it just been a regular
Yeah.
stateside thing, because that was, I mean, that's a
Yeah.
complete culture shock
It's an experience.
on the other side of the world. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just so many different things to it.
Well, a funny story I would like to add, just because, for those of you who don't know, and obviously most of the people listening to this podcast won't know, Tyler and I met in Korea. So by proxy, I met Monica there as well. She ended up also kindling that friendship with Monica. With Tiffany, by searching for trash, uh,
Oh, the furniture, yeah.
the furniture. So
Which
it, it,
Yep.
which
it
was haunted and came home with them.
yeah. So in Korea, Koreans put trash out by the trash cans, but it's not trash. It is like
No.
very, very nice furniture that they just don't want anymore. And
Yeah,
they
and
set
it's
it.
under like a gazebo, like not
Yeah,
just in a dumpster or a landfill. Like they have little areas for the actual trash, the recyclables, the furniture, the clothes bins, like
yeah.
everything's separated.
This is South Korea. In North Korea, they sleep on the ground.
Well, North Korea. I just
True.
heard a very disturbing podcast on Joe Rogan the other day.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Uh,
the defector.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's some horrible stories that she tells about North Korea. This is all South Korean stories, ladies and gentlemen. So it's the non-communist side, but yeah, they kindled that relationship from searching for trash, but
Yeah, I
not
remember
but
that. That's
but
funny.
but not trash.
Yeah.
Uh,
I got a question for you, Tyler. Two
Shoot.
questions. One for the both of you, and then one for you, Tyler. So I'll start out with the one for you. So as kind of a straight A student with a degree when you joined the military, surfer from California, do you think that the person that you changed into in Korea, being around all these people from around the world, all different life stories and shit, do you think that that had an effect on your marriage? So for me, I was, the same boat as you, and then I got in with a bunch of nerds and got nerdier. It was a pretty
Got
easy.
nerdier.
It was a pretty easy transition to just go from being a musician or whatever to playing Pokemon. That's not really hard on a relationship. But do you think? I know when you got out there, you started drinking a lot and that kind of shit. Kind of the army life in South Korea. Do you think that that had a big effect on your relationship?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, I was uh I was definitely partying back home before, but it's a totally different dynamic. And when you're newly married and somebody drops everything and flies halfway around the world to be with you, and you're drinking all the time. And I mean, I actually almost got involuntarily extended right before I left, um, because of a bar
you're
fight.
welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, you and Jones held it down for that. But yeah, I mean, any new dynamic is gonna be um some kind of adjustment, and that was a shocking adjustment to, like I said, first time for both of us out of the country, and then to be it's not like we went to England or something,
Right.
we're in Korea. Everybody, everything looks different, sounds different. um the culture, the just the way they do things, it's crazy. I mean, just learning the trains, I'd never even been to New York at that point in my life.
Right.
So like I didn't know shit about trains. I drove everywhere my whole life. So yeah, it give you a map, and it's just like all these train lines look like spaghetti on a plate, and you're like, how do I
Rainbow
figure this out?
spaghetti.
Yeah, straight up. Yeah. So I mean, it's definitely is gonna put a lot more pressure on the relationship, whether it's the army, being overseas, um, drinking. There's just a million things
Yeah.
that'll make it worse.
So question number two is, I know with Tyler included, I know two people out of everybody that was married in the service that I knew are still married today. One other couple. Do you guys, the folks that you knew that were married, are any of them still married today, to your knowledge?
No, for me, it's Tyler and one other guy as well. He joined, I think he joined in 2010, and he's still with his spouse. And those literally are the two people that I know as well. Everyone else that I know has been divorced at least once.
Yeah, multiple for most, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I can't think of any, but the only couple that I can think of, I don't know if they still are, but I mean, the last time I talked to them was fucking 8, 9 years ago when I was still in. But yeah, the Perthels, they were the only couple that was still married. I could probably rattle off 30 plus couples that I knew personally that did make it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's 90+%, 95+% divorce rate from what I've seen. I mean, maybe there's
Yeah.
other areas that are at closer to that. What's the average, like 60, 62% or something like that, national average or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, that's not what I saw.
Yeah. I know dudes that were married in 6 years, married 3 times.
Yeah.
On their third or fourth wife leaving the service. Didn't learn their
Oh,
Yeah.
lesson.
and that's kind of the boat that I was in. Like I said, the first marriage I like to count that as my I don't count marriage.
Mulligan.
Yep, that's my mulligan. To speak to a little bit of my transition through my first duty station and into Joint Base Lewis McChord. When I first got to Korea, I was single. I went there with a guy named Joshua Olson, and we were both single. And for the first, several months that we were there, all we did was party. We partied hard. We saw Korea. We would literally take the train and just get off at random stops and just walk all over Korea to just see all of these places. I ended up meeting a Peruvian girl while I was there, and know before anybody freaking messages or reviews or sends questions, it was not a juicy girl. She was not a juicy girl.
He bought her a drink, and the rest is history.
But yeah, and going through that was a whirlwind because she was from Peru. She only spoke Spanish for the most part. I only spoke English. And we had a very, very volatile relationship in general. And to add all of the training, all of the time having to do, all of the monotonous everyday taskings of the Army, added a ton of stress to an already stressed relationship.
Yeah.
I think that one of the first things, I created a very strong bond with you, Tyler, and Monica while I was there. And I spent the majority of my time with you guys and Olson. And even after I got with this girl, you guys were both like, yep, she's not the one for you, dude. Telling you fucking make her kick rocks and fucking go the other way as far as and as fast as possible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I, like normal, did not listen, and it turned into, almost an 8-year, downhill fucking struggle to the finish. It got to a point when we got to Joint Base Lewis McChord, things didn't really get any better. And a lot of it, I can't even say it was all the Army. The Army definitely added struggles, having to leave for months on end and having to be at work for long extended hours, having to do the things that you must do when you're in the military. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. Uncle Sam tells you you have to fucking do these things. There is no, hey, I'm going to call in today, because if you fucking call in, you're going to get an Article 15.
Right.
If you don't go to formation, you're going to get skull fucked by your platoon sergeant when you get to work the next day. So there is no, I'm not going to go in today. I'm not going to do it. So I had to do these things, and I'm struggling with, a fucking communication barrier that I have with a woman that I'm married to, and a child by this point, because she had gotten pregnant, and I had my second child, my daughter. And I think that the icing on the cake was a deployment to Afghanistan, where I was gone for, close to a year. And, we would probably never have been able to survive our marriage without Afghanistan, but Afghanistan just really, it was kind of like the same scenario with my first wife. I left, go to basic training. I learn all these things about myself. I come home, Same thing in Afghanistan to a certain degree. I learned all these things about myself. Plus, I've just gone through some pretty fucking intense shit for several months of my life. So when I came back, I was not only a different person, but I was very much so less willing to deal with the bullshit that I had dealt with previously. So I just told her to kick rocks, and that's been my motto kind of throughout the military. Whenever I'm with someone, I get to a point where I'm like, yep, I can walk away and be good. And I did it both times. And so a lot of that was because of the Army. It gave me the strength to do so and showed me things about myself that I didn't know previously. And also dealing with the Army life and the military life. It just kind of like, yeah, even if I'm gonna stay in the military, I can't be in this relationship with you. I can't go through these fucking fights with you. I can't stay up till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning arguing with you
Oh my God.
because I have to fucking get up at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
I can't fucking do this shit. I'm gonna get in big fucking trouble, and when you get in trouble at work, you might lose your job. But in the Army, they take your money, they take your rank, and eventually you end up getting kicked out, and that fucks up your entire life.
Yeah,
Dude,
if you
even
look at
even
a
if you
fucking
do show
drug,
up, even if you do show up, you fall asleep at your desk, you're in big fucking trouble.
Yeah, if you fuck up in training because you're sleep deprived, and everybody's sleep deprived when you're training in the Army or the military in general. But if you're fucking up at home and that carries over into your training, then that's a big deal, and they take that
Yeah.
shit super seriously. But also they take very seriously infidelity. So some of those fights and some of those
yep.
issues pushes you to those points where you want to seek out other women and you want to fucking get some of the validation from the other sex that you don't get from your spouse or from your wife, and you want to have those fun times with women. But if you do that shit, then they can literally fuck up your life. It's one of the only things that I know where it's like illegal to cheat on your spouse,
Yeah.
pretty much. If you cheat on your spouse and it's proven and it's found out, then you're in big fucking trouble.
Yeah.
So
Cheating on your spouse and dueling, those are the two things you shouldn't do in the military.
yeah,
No
Or
dueling.
use an umbrella. Don't use an umbrella.
Yeah.
never use an umbrella.
Yeah,
Don't
man.
salute with your left hand.
Oh God. Yeah, they. Um. Not they. I was talking quite a while ago with some friends and just talking about that whole, you know, army or military versus civilian. Like, would I have gone through these same issues in my relationships, in my personal life, blah 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 blah. Yes, but I feel like personally, I feel like the military just kind of magnifies everything. It's like a lot faster pace, to where something like in the civilian world, in a relationship, say it takes 6 7 years to come up, whereas in the military, it's probably going to come up in a year or two in your relationship, just because there are your deployments and your training, and if you don't have a very strong foundation to a relationship, you're in for it when it comes to military, because all the military does is just grab that shit and start shaking to see what can come loose. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I think any issues that you have in the military, you probably still have as a civilian. um you know PTSD from combat, okay, maybe that's something that you wouldn't. But from a relationship perspective, yeah, I think you get a lot of the same shit, but it just happens so much faster in the military, just because of the lifestyle and the stress. Things just kind of rear its it rears its head a lot faster
Yeah.
Yeah, dude,
in the military.
I think too, like, because even when you're not deployed and you're just training for deployment, because I mean, for
Yeah,
us, it's a constant cycle. You deploy, and when you come home, you get a quick reprieve, and then you're training for deployment. Like, that's the
right.
constant cycle. And for us, like, you're living at like 100 miles an hour all the time. at work. So when I go home, I don't have the fucking patience, the strength, or the wherewithal to fucking argue about the laundry. Like
Right.
I don't have the give a fuck at that point. And then I guess it kind of is the same for civilians too. So I mean, you work all day, you don't want to fucking deal with it. But I think whenever, just to talk about what you were saying, Tyler, like um to for it to be magnified, like it's magnified so much more because of
Mm-hmm.
how your lifestyle is at work.
Right.
Well, I think it brings out the type of person you are too. You know, like Tyler's saying, it accelerates things, right? So if somebody was going to cheat, well, it kind of goes both ways, right? So if you're somebody who TDYs a lot, you're gone for short amounts of time. I think that strengthens a marriage. You miss each other just enough to not have temptation and to appreciate the time you have together. So like the first 3-4 years of my military service was all TDY, basically. 3 to 6 months gone at the most. I didn't really have any long stints after the beginning. But I know a lot of guys that leave for a year and then get extended for a year and a half, 2 years, whatever. Nobody was there to replace them. And then their spouse is stepping out, cheating on them.
Yep.
And it's shit that if they weren't in the service, it would have happened either way. The person is the person that they are.
Yeah.
But they had that opportunity. They had that gap where they're lonely, insecure, whatever it is. And it goes the other way too. There's a lot of folks in the military who the second they get to the desert, they're like, I am alone for the first time in a long time, sleeping in a tent, time to climb into somebody else's cot. And we see that a lot. It's technically illegal to, screw somebody over there, but people do it.
I think
Employment goggles.
yeah, I think one of the big things for me too, and I'm sure it was different for you guys because both of your wives were American and they spoke English, but for me, I had a wife that was not very she didn't speak English very well. And so I felt a responsibility, and I guess like it was my job to like make sure that she met people that she could communicate with and be friends with, so that I wasn't the single focal point that she relied on. So that caused me a lot of stress too, because I would, meet people in the military, or she ended up getting to the point where she met people, kind of like what you were alluding to earlier, Shane. And we would try to make the relationships work as couples. And sometimes they worked out pretty well. I have made some pretty good friends that way, but sometimes it was like fucking oil and vinegar. So
Oh
like
yeah.
I'm cool with the husband, but she hates the wife, or the wives are cool, but the husband is a fucking tool, and
Yep.
I can't stand being around him. But like for me, I couldn't just like be like, it's on you, make friends, because she couldn't really speak English that well, so I had to like go out for her and assist in her friend making. So that added up. It was almost like I was caring for a child, and
Yeah.
then dealing with the military shit that amplified our situation so much. So maybe if I was a civilian and I wasn't in the army, I would have had a lot more patience, and I would have
Yeah.
been like, I made this decision to marry this woman that's not fucking fully versed in English, and it would have been a lot easier because I could go and do things with her on a regular basis. But being in the army, when I'm at work for hours and training, and then I come home and now I have to force myself to do all these other social things with people that I would have never been social with.
Right.
Yeah.
In these situations, there were, people from, there were like hard Latinos or Hispanics, and I gained relationships with these people afterwards. But before I joined the army, I never had any relationships with someone that was Peruvian or Mexican or Puerto Rican, even though I am a quarter Puerto Rican myself. I never knew anybody that's fucking Puerto Rican.
Right.
So
Yeah, I thought, it's interesting too, like I had a buddy who ended up having an affair with his best friend's wife while his best friend was deployed and while his wife was pregnant.
Jody.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of crap happened all the time. And the interesting thing that happens when that kind of stuff goes down is there's that dependency, like we were talking about earlier too, and then the feeling that you don't, you're the military member. And I saw a lot of this Like, I don't need you, right? So, like you said, the military gave you that strength, but that goes to a bad direction too, where, you know, if your wife is messing up, I think you're a lot more inclined to kick her to the curb
Yeah.
than you would be if you were both civilians making minimum wage, whatever, and you actually needed each other. You needed that shared bank account, that support. You know, in the military, you're basically like, I got my shit covered. You can go home to your parents. You know.
Yeah. Kick rocks.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's
So what do we hit? Mid career for us now. So let's talk about deployments. What do you guys think? So I know Tyler. We'll start with you. So Tyler didn't get deployed. Tyler volunteered, and I know that um, you actually extended your contract to deploy, and I know that caused a big rift. So you want to speak to that a little bit? How wanting to do your duty and
yeah.
serve your country screwed things up.
So, at this time, I'm in Fort Riley, Kansas. It is 2010. Um, we're sitting there, doing our FTXs. We did a couple schools like AFATADs, which is job specific,
Yay.
job specific for FOs. Yeah, that was not fun, because we never ended up fucking ever using it. But then I did armor school, and thank God I did, because what had happened was is my company's armor needed help, and so they're like, hey Miller, you're the only one that took that class. I was literally within like a couple of weeks of me graduating this like week-long class I did just because I was bored in garrison. They're like, you want to like be the assistant armor? I was like, all right, like, cool. I'll clean some extra guns or hand out some guns before we go out to the FTXs and stuff. So I'm doing that, and then word comes down that all of my fisters that I was with were going down to our battalion, our FA battalion, because we were at brigade company. So I was like, all right, cool. We're going back to a line finally. Let's do it. And they're like, yeah, you're not going. I was like, oh, the fuck for? I'm like, well, you're the assistant armor, so we're gonna keep you here. I was like, dude, come on. Like, we had a cool little cult team of fucking FOs, and now it's time to go back down the line. And they're like, no, you're not going. So cool. So I get past that. I'm like, all right, well, we're fucking deploying anyways here in a few months. So we end up going to NTC for a month. We get back, and the MTO comes out, and I'm on fucking rear D. And I was like, I talked to the platoon sergeant, fucking super cool cat, Sergeant Harrell. And I was like, Sergeant, like, why am I not done? They're like, well, you're the assistant armor. We just need one armor there. Sorry, we ain't got a slot for you. So I even asked him to go talk to first sergeant with me. First sergeant's like, dude, like, took him out. Like, we don't need you. There's no space for you. I'm like, okay, send me back to the line, with my guys back down to Hamilton zone. And they're like, nope, you're gonna stay here and be the rear D armor. Like, I almost about fucking lost it. So long story short, fast forward to a week before deployment, Advon and Torch have already left, and first sergeant calls me into his office. He's like, hey, the unit armor got hurt. He hurt his back. He's got a non-deployable profile. um can you do this? And I was like, yeah. That's what I've been
Wa-
trying to
Wasn't
fucking do.
wasn't that main armor that hurt his back? Wasn't that the dude that was a broke dick anyways that was always trying to get out of deployments?
He was originally in 116 infantry, and I think he was going through some shit with his wife or something at the time, because yeah, he didn't want to, from what he had told me, he didn't want to go on this deployment. He'd already been deployed with his line unit. And so yeah, he definitely did want to go. So yeah, there was some shit there. You know, did he go get the profile just to not go? Like, I don't know, but I didn't care. Like, that was a slot that I fucking wanted. So cool, let's fucking roll. So yeah, I went home and told my wife that even though I had already told her that I'm not going and that I'm gonna just get out because this is, I mean, it's Korea, it's back home for a year to train, to go, to not get to go. I was so fucking jaded and felt like I had wasted all this time, and I was just like, fuck it, like I'm done. So then I tell her, oh no, sorry, I actually am leaving like next week. So start packing all my shit, PCCs, PCIs, and fucking roll out. And it was an absolute just shock to her system. Shane, that's when we fucking ended up grabbing that house.
Yep.
Up
Newborn kid.
yeah, fucking up in Nebraska next to you, because I didn't want her staying at that, you know, she didn't know anybody because we live 20, 25 minutes from post. So
Yeah.
she didn't really have any friends. So we ended up getting a house real quick, 3.5 hours north up in Omaha right before I deployed. So she'd be by some family. And I was just fucking gone for a year. And yeah, man, it was a crazy just, and I mean that's just the military though. It's up and down emotionally. It puts so much stress on your relationship because you're thinking one thing and then something else happens. And you know, at the time when I deployed, my first son was 10 months old. So you know, she's got this baby and then a new house and taking care of all this shit. So man, it's just, yeah, it was a fucking shit show. My whole fucking time in was just an absolute shit show. I mean, I never regret it. Obviously, you know, best job I ever had. But
Right.
man, it was a fucking, it was a crazy train for sure.
Yeah. So, excuse me. So for me, I kind of spoke to a little bit of the issues I was having with my current wife at the time. We were dealing with a fuck ton of shit, garrison, and a lot of things were going on, and we were struggling in our relationship. My ex had even tried to commit suicide. Not too long before we deployed, and I had actually stepped outside of our marriage too with a chick, and that wasn't out in the open, but it was assumed. Like, that wasn't known at the time,
Right.
but she definitely had her suspicions and she assumed it. So we were dealing with that. And when I deployed, the first fucking couple of months of my deployment was just a fucking shit show, because I am literally in an area where, you know, we're taking contact on a regular basis. We're in an area where they're implanting IEDs all over our main routes of movement. You know, we're in and out of villages for KLEs. I'm constantly moving.
Oh yeah.
And you know, whenever I do get the chance to call home, I'm fucking fighting with her about this situation. And probably about 4 months into the deployment, she got like full blown proof that I had cheated on her. And that was just like a fucking, like a nuclear bomb had gone off. So, you know, luckily for me, before I left, I did not leave her in charge of anything. I didn't give her power of attorney to anything. I gave all that shit to my mom. So my mom was literally giving her all of her money to pay all the bills and giving her all of the money that she needed to live. But if I hadn't have set it up that way, I would have definitely gone home like one of those guys that you hear about, where all of my shit would have been fucking cleared
Furniture's
out,
gone. Yep.
fucking gone.
Family's gone.
She would have taken my fucking kid and probably moved back to Peru. Or she could have
Yep.
taken the baby to Peru because she didn't have a passport, but she definitely would have fucking taken off. She was a super volatile, crazy woman in general.
Mhm.
And with the information and everything going on, she definitely would have taken off. So, you know, it's not something that I'm proud of. the infidelity portion of it. But it's just like I was saying previously, I had just been pushed to a point with dealing with taking care of her and having to fucking be her sole provider. I had to take care of all the bills. I had to take care of all the responsibilities. Like, she didn't do anything besides like home keep, and she didn't do that very well.
Yeah.
So I was kind of jaded to the point like fuck you, dude. I don't want to go through this with you anymore. I don't want to deal with this shit. And I'm fucking preparing for a deployment to Afghanistan where shit is still actively happening all the time. So when I got to Afghanistan, that was my full focus. That's what I wanted my full focus to be on, taking care of myself and my fucking my brothers, so that we all make it home alive. The infidelity and the fucking marriage shit can wait.
Yeah.
But for her, that's not a fucking option. We're hashing this shit out. We're dealing with it. So I'm fucking, like I said, on the times that I could talk, I'm spending, a couple hours using my phone card time to argue with her about this shit. Um, it eventually got to a point, by the time deployment was over, we had hashed a lot of it out. I came home. We tried to salvage the marriage. Eventually it didn't work out. We had just gone through too much before deployment. And then when I came back, I was just a completely different person. And I'm, like I've said before on this podcast, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I was a different person because I was war hardened and fucking took contact 23 out of 24 hours a day.
1,000-yard stare.
Yeah, but going through the shit that we went through and building the bonds that I built while I was there, trying to keep each other alive, and then having the success of getting everyone in my small unit home safely to their families. It seemed like the marriage at that time was just kind of like whatever. Honestly speaking, when I came back from deployment, my brothers from Alpha 5-2 infantry were more important to me than my wife.
Yeah.
The only other person that was more important to me were my children. Pretty much everybody else, I was just, and my mom at the time, because, my mom held it down for me hardcore when I was deployed. But, I could have my wife could have left, and as long as I had, time with my kids, I would not have cared, honestly, at the time. So that's where I was mentally. Like, I care about my brothers here. I care about staying alive. I care about keeping them alive. I don't give a fuck what you do. You can't rob me. You can't take all my shit because my mom has powers of attorney. So do what you're going to do. And like I said, we were able to salvage it a little bit. We maintained the marriage for a few months. I don't know, Tyler, how long was it? Maybe a year after I got back, because I was
It was
talking
a
to you pretty
while.
regularly. Yeah.
That's actually when you when you came down, you drove straight through. You had that badass new
Volkswagen
Volkswagen
CC.
CC, man.
Yep.
Yeah, you guys drove straight through. This was that 2013?
Yep.
Yeah, it was July 4th, 2013. Yep.
Yeah. We hadn't seen each other in fucking 4 years since the day I left Korea.
Yeah.
I had fucking at that point come stateside, went to Iraq with my unit in Riley, ETS, got a house in Lancaster, and then you showed up after your deployment with the fam bam, and realized how amazing Lancaster, California was.
Yeah, man. Along with your fucking spiel, you talked me right on down, bro.
Yeah.
Dale.
Yeah. So,
Right.
overall, the Army definitely was a factor in my relationships because of how we lived and what we did in the Army. Um, and then my mentality of, I want to train, I want to be good at what I do so that when I do deploy, I'm not going to die. Um, at the risk of sounding, cliche and corny. But it's kind of like, a lot of times my marriage took a back seat
Yeah.
because of that.
Oh, always. And there's so much
Yeah.
resentment and bitterness that the spouse has, that your wife has, or if the wife's
Yeah.
one, and that the husband has, just from your family, and especially, God forbid you have kids like we did, that's another thing for them to resent you for, because
Yeah.
you're not there for them. I mean, I'm not saying it's all done consciously. A lot of it is just human emotion, and you weren't fucking there, and like they understand why you weren't there, but it doesn't solve their problem that
It
you
doesn't
weren't
change
fucking
the
there.
fact. Yeah, it
That's
doesn't
all
change
it
the fact.
is. So
Yeah.
yeah, and then you're like, well, fuck you. Like, if you
Yeah.
can't get past what I fucking did, you know, like
A
I
lot of
wasn't out, partying in Vegas with my boys.
right.
I was fucking deployed, or I was out training for deployment. So yeah, it gets hairy.
A lot of spouses though get into that though, and I saw that with Tyler's spouse. Not so much with mine because I didn't leave as much as Tyler did. You know, long training stints and stuff like that. But um, a lot of spouses get to a point where, especially when you have kids, it's like I'm raising this kid by myself, and you're a piece of shit. And you're like, well, I've been in the desert. I've been training, it's been, 120 degrees and I'm sweating my ass off, and they're like, yeah, well, you're gone and you're not here for your kid. Like I said earlier, they didn't sign up for that. They didn't realize like that you're doing 16-hour days even when you're stateside, you know, and then a lot of resentment and hate gets put on you that you're not handling your at home business and you just don't have time. Like if you're going to get any sleep, it's work, sleep.
Yeah, I think the thing for me too, and that was a big thing for me once my second wife started giving me shit about the military. I was like, look, you knew what the fuck you were getting into. You knew I was a soldier, and maybe you didn't know the full ins and outs of what that meant, but at a minimum, you knew basically what that was.
Yeah.
You know that I'm owned by Uncle Sam until I fucking get out.
Yeah.
So whatever he tells me I have to do, I have to fucking do. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And if that's not something that you can swallow or you can get past, then you need to fucking move on.
Yeah.
And
I
I
mean,
think that that's
it's a deal with the devil. I mean,
yeah.
you do not get out of your contract until you leave broken or you finish your time, you know.
I wouldn't necessarily, for me, I wouldn't classify it that way, because I'd say it's like a love-hate relationship, because you fall in love with certain aspects of it,
Yeah.
and then you fucking hate certain aspects of it. So I would say it's like the devil on one shoulder and the angel on the other kind of
Yeah.
thing. So like it's the devil, like there are some days like I don't want to fucking do this shit. This is fucking
Mhm.
stupid. It seems that sometimes like you're making me do this shit just for fucking shits and giggles.
Right.
Um like fuck you, but you can't say fuck you.
Right.
But then there are the other times where you finish an exercise or you finish a training and you're just so fucking like hyped and
Yeah.
stoked, and you fucking like you know that you're ready to do what you fucking trained to do, and your unit is prepared, and you know you're gonna fucking kick ass when you deploy.
Yeah.
Like that's the other part of it where you're like, yes, this is what the fuck I signed up to do. This is why I joined. And these guys that are with me, and I say guys because I was in an all-male unit. There were no females in combat arms when I was in the service. These guys that are with me are on the same level with me. So if I struggle in something, I know they're going to be there. If they struggle, I'm going to be there.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
You're married to the service.
yeah, and so the saying is Army first, mission always. And there's no wife in any of that saying.
Right. Yeah.
If the Army wanted me to have a wife, they would have issued me one.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough pill for a significant other to swallow, to know that you're not the priority. You know, there's something that you signed up to that's bigger than you, that's greater than than you, and civilian world, you always have the choice. Military, you don't. It's
Right.
just fucking suck it up, buttercup. And a lot of people can't, and that sucks, and it's sad. Um, but it's just what it is. I mean, my wife definitely went through it for a long time. Got very bitter about things that she could see, like I was talking about, just the time away, especially once we had our first kid, not being there not only for her but for him also. And she even said, she's like, it's not like I don't know what you're doing or what you signed up for. It's not like I think it's not worth it, but I still have my emotions. I still have my thoughts and feelings, and I can't just wish them away. It's something that something that she had to get through,
Yeah.
and
Well,
it's some people just can't.
and that's a big portion of it too, because at those emotions and stuff, like I had them too. For me, I wanted a lot of times to be with my wife, or especially to be with my kids.
Yeah.
And there would like I would have loved to not be fucking doing layouts till midnight. I would much rather have spent that time with my daughter at the time, or
Yeah.
my son when he came to visit, or even my wife. At certain points of our marriage. But it's just like you have to bury those emotions, because you can't harp on it, because
Yeah.
there's nothing that you can do about it. It is what it
Right.
is.
Yeah. You're not
There's a
gonna
huge
change it.
there's a misconception too, right? Because you are with your boys, right? So you spend
Yeah.
every day with these people. When you're not at work, you're barbecuing together, you're watching the game together. And so to a wife, even one that knows what the service entails, she's thinking, well, you're spending all day with your boys. This is like fucking
Well,
pro
and
football or something.
she's not fucking wrong. Like it's
No.
not it's not like those times in the motor pool are completely fucking horrible. Like they suck, but you're playing grab ass with the homies the whole
Right.
time
Yeah.
that you're out there. You're not just fucking,
Yeah.
sucking the whole time.
It's a ton of stress and stuff, and there's PT and there's all that kind of shit. But at the end of the day, you leave work most of the time smiling because the guys around you, you're enjoying your time with. So, that puts a sour taste in their mouth too, because like I said, it's not work necessarily to them. It's grab ass, like you said.
And I give the
Yeah.
utmost, I want to make it clear too that I'm not in any way um, bagging or degrading or downplaying what military spouses go through,
Yeah.
because I don't understand from a first person perspective, because I was never a military spouse, but I know what I had to do in the army and some of the things that my ex had to withstand while I was in the army. So somebody that
Yeah.
can deal with that shit and then fucking like power on, fucking soldier on, like there's a lot to be said for that person, because a lot of people can't do it. We just said,
Yeah.
Tyler's experience is 90%, and it's the same for me. 90 to 95%, maybe even more, of everybody I've known that has been married in the military has been divorced.
Yep.
So there's the majority of people that I know cannot accept it. They can't get through it, and they
Mm-hmm.
can't. So the person that can and does, there's a whole other level of respect for them, because that's a fucking strong person.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, they're right there, other than actual deployments, right there beside you, going through it all, not understanding half of what you're saying or what's actually happening, or then on a deployment or training where there's no communication, just being totally left in the dark. I mean, I remember when I was in Iraq, um, fucking Washington D.C. couldn't figure out the budget,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and so they sat on their fucking hands, and we had to sign this fucking um this memo that said, hey, yeah, you're not getting paid,
Yep.
but you did sign on this dotted line, and that means that no matter what the fuck happens, your ass is showing up and you're going to work. Not like I could do anything anyways in
Right.
Iraq. Like, I'm not going to go steal a Humvee and fucking
Drive
Yeah.
home.
drive across the Pacific Ocean. But but yeah, she had to figure it out. We didn't have
Yeah.
fucking money, and so when I call home, she's stressed. She's at the time, our son was a little over one. She's working full time, going to school, paying all the bills, cutting the fucking grass, cleaning the house, because God
Yeah.
knows we don't have money to pay anybody to fucking take care of that shit. And then, oh, by the way, you got to suck it up for 6 weeks and figure it out, because I'm over here and I can't do a fucking thing for you.
Yep.
Like,
And at that time, we had both just built brand new houses. It was what
mm-hmm.
4 weeks after we built brand new houses. They're like, you're not getting paid anymore.
Well, and then to caveat
Yep.
on to what you said about being in the dark, there were times, if we ever had anyone die while we were deployed, we went through blackout stages where
Yeah.
no one was allowed to call
No
home
comms.
for extended periods of time until the person's family was notified.
Yep.
And so, your family might go a week or so not hearing from you. And obviously, if you're deployed, they're going to be thinking the worst.
The worst
Uh,
immediately. Yeah.
yeah. So I
There
kind of
was
got
a
I kind of got to the point with my family and with my wife. I just kind of told them like, look, if you don't hear anything, that probably means it's a good thing because if I'm dead, they're going to contact you immediately.
Yep. Yeah.
yeah.
You'll be getting a phone call. Someone will be coming to the door.
Yeah.
Yeah. No news is good
There was
news in
shit
that
too.
circumstance.
There was shit too, and I know you guys are dealing with this more now than you did back then. But like, I had TS clearance, and I couldn't tell my wife half the shit I was doing. I couldn't tell her what I was discussing with my coworkers, or where I was going on missions. I'd just say, hey, I'm going somewhere in the South Pacific. Deal with it. That's all I can tell you. And that gets rough because they're just taking your word for it that you're actually getting shipped out or whatever. And then it got weird too. In my particular career field, I'm having to tell her you can't have any markings on your car. Um, if somebody approaches you and says this, that, or the other thing, you need to call the police. Like you're gonna get followed. All this kind of weird shit that you don't expect stateside that people don't realize is going on here. And for a spouse, I mean, like I said, they didn't sign up for that. She didn't sign up to be followed, or to be somebody walk up to her in a bar and call her by her first name. Weird shit. Um, so I think there's all these extra layers of complexity that even we didn't understand coming in married. That we thought, oh, you go out and you do your one deployment and you're good, whatever. If you make it, you make it. And there's all this other shit stateside that you don't realize is going to just throw a wrench in everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, I think that's pretty much it. Unless you guys want to go into non-marital relationships and how that was messed up, I think we could probably do a whole nother podcast about that.
Yeah, no, I think that that's definitely a topic for a separate podcast. I think now is a good time to talk about some of our plugs, so to speak, or our sponsors.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about Buzzsprout. So Buzzsprout, let's get your podcast launched, ladies and gentlemen. Today is a great day to start your own podcast. Whether you're looking for a new marketing channel, have a message you want to share with the world, or just think it would be fun to have your own talk show, podcasting is an easy, inexpensive, and fun way to expand your reach online. Buzzsprout is hands down the easiest and best way to launch, promote, and track your podcast. Or your show can be online and listed in all of the major podcast directories like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more within minutes of finishing your recording. Podcasting isn't hard when you have the right partners, and the team at Buzzsprout is passionate about helping you succeed. Join over 100,000 podcasters already using Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. Let's create something great together. So that's coming from the same company that we deal with, Buzzsprout. I've had great success with this company. They have a lot of great features, so go and check them out. In the show notes, we will leave a link. And you guys subscribe to the link and get your own podcast started. Get it out to the world.
Yep.
Say what
Yep.
you gotta say.
It's a great program, and also check us out on Patreon. It's Double Tap Fatigues to Slacks on Patreon. Choose a tier there if you want to support us and be involved. We've got some cool rewards and stuff like that. So yeah, Double Tap Fatigues to Slacks on Patreon, and any of the other links that we have below too. We have other sponsors. If you shop using Instacart, for example, or anything like that, we do get a small cut of that. Little rewards for that. So follow the links below and help keep this show running.
Yeah. Also, you guys, social media, hit up IG, give us a like, give us a follow. I'll always have updated links in the bio right there, straight to our episodes on Buzzsprout.
Yeah, YouTube too, guys. We got us on YouTube, so you can find us on
Yep.
YouTube at DTF, the number 2 and S. That's obviously the initials, double tapped, fatigues to slacks. Check us out on YouTube, like, subscribe, comment, review.
Did you realize that it was DTF,
DTF?
when you wrote that?
No,
Hey-o.
I actually didn't write it with Shane. I think he did it intentionally, but
You dirty dog.
Hey, I said you dirty dog. uh,
All right, guys.
All right, ladies and
Well,
gentlemen. Yes, talk to you next week. Review.
yeah, thanks for joining. See you next
Peace.
time.
Deuces.